All right. Welcome to the Dynasty Evaluation Show. This is John Mullen. I am here with some special guests today. I need to introduce them all. As Chris Joel Smith says, I'm terrible at that, so I will jump in. And the co-host with the Mo-host, JT Orange, Justin Taylor. Thanks for joining me today. He set up our Fantrax today. He's the soldier of the group today, doing all the hard work for me. So thanks for being here, JT. What's going on?
Yeah, so when it screws up, it will also be my fault. So I'll take the good with the bad, but I'm going to do my best here to run the page, and hopefully I don't screw it up.
Next, I invited Dustin. Dustin, thanks for jumping on with us.
No problem. It's always good to get on with you guys and do a little mock draft for SFB and see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Colin, you are a Fantrax guy also. Thanks for jumping on today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's going on?
Yeah, right for Fantrax. Just had my first mock draft for redraft season drop yesterday on fantraxhq.com. But we're talking Scott Fishbowl today, doing a Scott Fishbowl draft on Fantrax. First one I've done publicly, so I'm ready to get roasted beyond belief.
Oh, hey, we're all going to get roasted today. It's a great group here. So speaking of Fantrax, Kevin, you guys is partner with Fantrax. Tell me about yourself, where you get ready to find you, all that stuff about being here on Fantrax today with all these fine gentlemen.
Yeah, I like long walks on the beach. When you're looking at like the idea of Fantrax, we partner with it for college football. We're excited about it. It's drafting, kind of diving into that too. And anytime I can chop it up with Colin, Justin, and Dustin, I'm here. You're okay. But those other three guys, they're a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate them. And I haven't done an SFB mock yet. I have not looked into scoring outside kick returns. So I am out of it in terms of SFB. So I definitely needed this a little bit.
It would not be fair if I did not read the all the rules, the scoring rules to everybody here. So we're going to spend a minute here doing the rushing. So rush for quarterbacks, which is super flex here. There is for every 50 yards is 1 point throwing, 6 points passing touchdown, a 2-point conversion is worth 2 points. There's no negative scoring here. So rushing yards, 0.1. So every 10 yards is a point. Rushing touchdowns worth 6. Rushing first downs is a half point. 2-point conversion is 2 points. Rushing attempts is 0.25. Attempts are huge. Receiving 0.5 per reception. And then receiving touchdowns are 6. Receiving first downs are 0.5 for receivers. Conversion is 2. Receiving bonus is 0.5 for tight ends, or 0.1, or a full point for tight ends. And then for sleeper, we have kickers. So points per field goal is 0.1 point. And point after touchdown made is 3.3 points for every PAT. So a lot of you want the scoring kickers. Special teams touchdowns. Special teams players is plus 10 for a special teams player touchdown. Punt return yards are 0.2 per yard, which equals every 5 yards, 1 point. That's humongous to have punt return. So kick return yards are also 5 yards for equals 1 point for every 5 yards. So those are important deals. Fumble recovery for a touchdown is 6 points. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but first down for tight end bonus is also 1 point. So a couple bonus scoring here. Scott changed it up every year. It's a great match, great tournament to be in. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with these guys. So let's get to the draft itself. So we have
Dustin is on the clock. I've got you paused. So whenever you're ready,
Okay.
Dustin,
I am ready to go.
when. Okay, I'll unpause it. We'll get it going.
I'm going to share my screen here with everyone so we can see.
So, and I will say this about my pick. I am taking Josh Allen. I don't think it's necessarily the right pick for Scott Fishbowl, but as you can tell, I'm a Bills fan. I don't think it's a bad pick. I think Jalen Hurts is slightly better with the first down bonuses, but I'm taking Josh Allen because I want him. That's why I took the 101 spot. I want to get Josh Allen because I want to root for my quarterback. Not a bad pick at 101, but I think Hurts and Christian McCaffrey should be in that conversation for your Scott Fishbowl drafts.
I'm running the Philly live draft for Scott Fishbowl, and I can almost guarantee in all 5 divisions, Jalen Hurts will probably be
yes.
the 101.
Homers.
Yeah, we've seen through we had Cincinnati, Fort Lauderdale, and Las Vegas last weekend. We saw a lot of people go Josh Allen. We're able to get some stacks later on with that, so we'll see how it works out. It really depends on, for me, if you want to do 2 quarterbacks, or you're just willing to go with 1 quarterback because you only have to start 1. It is super flex, but with the kick return points And the down points for yardage for quarterbacks is a quarterback in the Superflex necessarily the optimal play every week.
I was kind of hoping that Christian McCaffrey would fall to me at 106, which just happened the last five mocks I've had. But there we go. That's not going to happen. So McCaffrey's off the board at 102.
I know tight ends are a little bit juiced this year. I remember last year, I don't remember the exact scoring, but they were really, really beneficial to take a tight end early. Travis Kelce went 101 in a lot of leagues last year. Interested to see when the tight ends come off the board in this one.
I had Kelce and Andrews last year, and one got hurt and one had a bye week, and I was gone out of the tournament. Bam, in the playoffs. Couldn't happen worse. Worst timing.
Yeah, I remember he hurt his calf or knee in training camp, and
he hurt my feelings.
I think you heard a collective gasp around the country and the world when that happened. So what is this, an auto?
Yeah, so we got these. The last two were auto picks.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out if I could pick it myself, but it's not. Now we got Cobb on the clock at the 104. I'm actually 104, but I put myself at 105 for this mock. I'm in the 104 in the Cincy live draft.
I think it's important to note too that we already have a quarterback, running back, wide receiver. I've seen some mock drafts I've been in where it's quarterback straight through like 10 picks.
Yeah.
Every Scott Fishbowl draft is going to be completely different. There's no real right or wrong answers. Only 1 out of 4,000 people can win. So
in a super flex format, I'm super happy that these running backs and receivers are going, even though they're good players. I still want to get my quarterbacks in ASAP. So definitely. I'm okay with that.
The biggest thing with Colin's point, with the tournament this big, you really got to zag, and you really got to have some different builds than other guys out there, especially because the injuries, like you said with Kelce last year, you saw that. So don't be afraid to zag. Like there are definitely different ways to win this tournament, and it's really about luck. In a tournament this size, it's really just who stays the healthiest, and then the luck down the stretch. That's the big thing.
Last year it was all about those backup quarterbacks who had Jake Browning, who had who else was out there? Who had Gardner Minshew for a little bit?
Who took CJ Stroud as QB3? Stroud was huge. I kicked myself at the live draft in Vegas. I made it to semis last year, but I took Bryce over Stroud as my QB3, and I lost Joe Burrow. And if I would have had Stroud, I would have definitely pushed it farther. So it really comes down to that too. You just have to, feel confident. And you get a little lucky or you're unlucky when you draft the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts goes 107. Oof.
That's late for Jalen Hurts.
That's extremely late, but anything can happen.
And what's going to be nice for a lot of people in Scott Fishbowl is if you are doing a slow draft, you don't start for a couple weeks. So you'll have all the live draft ADP information out there. We've got a bunch this weekend, a bunch next weekend, and then I think the slow draft starts. So you're going to see how people in Scott Fishbowl are actually drafting, look at their builds, kind of figure where you can zag, like Kevin said, and kind of build off that way. So you get a little more information. The further we go into it, the more information you have. I can't imagine being Fort Lauderdale or Cleveland. They were the first people basically setting ADP. So they going off what they think in their rankings, and then they could have drafted a guy at, the second round that all of a sudden falls in the third round for everyone else. It's just, that's what happens when you draft early, but that's the benefit of doing a live draft. So you kind of sacrifice the information to do the live draft, which are totally fun. And there's, that community aspect of Scott Fishbowl, which I think is super important. So,
Chicago was the first one 2 years ago. We were the first draft too. So we had no ADP to go by, just, our own rankings or some kind of online projections before, but it was all right. It was, you still have these in-person drafts are more about just having fun, kind of networking with people, having a great time. It's like going to the expo, but drafting at the same time here. It's just such a great time.
Yeah.
John,
so
why don't you, John, real quick, why don't you let people know why you took Mahomes over Hurts? Because I think a lot of people are going to tend to want a rushing quarterback in this league.
I understand the rushing aspect of the quarterback situation. I don't think there's going to be anywhere near the what do you have, 19 push touchdowns last year, something like that. That's not going to happen again. That was I just can't see it. Mahomes, I'm not a big fan of anybody else besides Kelce and the Chiefs, and Mahomes is just the fantasy player to have. I feel like there's a big regression in for Jalen Hurts this year. I don't see him getting those fantasy points from rushing again. Plus, I mean, on top of that, he doesn't need to dump. He's not going to be. He's got Saquon now. All of them, that's all gone, man. Instead of him running now, it's going to be dump off pass to Saquon. It's a whole different game, man. He's not worth as much as Mahomes anymore.
So I am on the clock here. I get back-to-back picks. It looks like the settings have it where quarterbacks aren't quite as valued as much as I expect them to when it's time to draft. But anything can happen, so I am going to stick with that and take the board as it comes. We're going to take quarterback 1 there. And I've typically, in the mock drafts I've done, been getting Joe Burrow at 112, which has been pretty fantastic, and I expect to do it when I actually draft. But I'm going to take Kyler Murray for the rushing upside as my QB2.
Yeah, those are great picks. I think you get the rushing upside for both Richardson and Murray, which obviously in Scott Fishbowl with the settings, you're going to get those bonus points. I don't think Joe Burrow is a bad pick at all. You just don't have as much rushing upside as the other guys.
As you can see, those auto draft teams are kind of ignoring the quarterback situation here, but that maybe give us an extra chance to talk about some of these other players. So there goes tight end 1 off the board, 2.6, yep. Sam Laporta.
Yeah.
Do we know who team 7 is?
I'll find out as soon as I get done picking here, but I really don't. Okay. Here we go. Ready? Just because I'm a homer.
Talking to you during your backswing. I'm sorry.
Everybody knows who this is going to be. It is what it is. So, a lot of rushing this year, a lot of comeback player stuff. Trevor Lawrence, dude. I'm taking him over Dak Prescott, which I thought, is kind of spicy here, but you got to, this is not a game of just ADP stuff, man. I want my guy. I'm going with a little bit lower in the rankings, but at the same time, Lawrence is going to run a lot more than Dak Prescott is. So
I think that's a big point is right, 1 in 4,000 people is going to win this. Are you in it to try to seriously win it, or are you in it to have fun, connect with people, build that community? That's why I took Josh Allen 1. I want my guy. John, you took Trevor Lawrence over Dak. That's your guy. You want to root for him. I think I'm okay with that. If you're at a place where you just go, hey, I'm just going to have the fun of it. I'm going to enjoy everything that Scott Fishbowl is not really try to maybe I win, but I'm not going to go overanalyze every pick. I think that's a fine pick.
It's 50 yards per passing now. It's not the 25 for a point anymore either. So it's not just passing quarterbacks. And Trevor Lawrence is average 65 rushes a year. I mean, that's average. So that's not bad for a guy. I mean, he's not like a rushing quarterback per se, but man, he moves when he has to.
So this is the first time in a mock draft I have not been able to get Jahmyr Gibbs at the 212. I'm going to take Trey McBride.
And I am back on the clock. The important thing with Scott Fishbowl 14 is the 3rd round reversal. So I think there's a huge advantage to being picked 12. Given that I have 2 quarterbacks, I was going to take McBride to stack with Kyler, but kind of can't deny with the tight end upside here. I'm going to go with Travis Kelce.
And we've seen in the live drafts that happened so far, a lot of people at 101 are getting Josh Allen and able to take Kincaid at 212 for that stack. I'm not as much as a believer in Kincaid as a fantasy option this year as most people, so that's why I took McBride over Kincaid.
Yeah, I'm sitting at the 111, so I didn't have time to yell at Colin for stealing Kyler Murray because I thought I was going to get Kyler Murray to pair it with CJ Stroud. That was my goal because I would take Anthony Richardson too. I love both those guys. I was going to take McBride, but since he's not there, I'll just go wide receiver. I'll take Puka and just kind of have him there. I think Kupp is going to be pretty good there. I think he's going to get the targets, but really with Puka, you get that wide receiver 1, pretty safe floor there. I just struggle with taking because I've seen Marvin Harrison Jr. go pretty high in some drafts and some mocks there for redraft. I struggle with that. I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but I do struggle a little bit with how high he is going. I've seen him go ahead of Puka Nacua in a few drafts, and I just don't know if that's the right pick in terms of just what the floor could be. I mean, if I'm going to take a ceiling play later, I'll do that with some rookies in there. And I do think that's another point about Scott Fishbowl. You got to hit on some rookies. You really got to go target some of those guys that you think are going to pop off and have those big, Nacua notwithstanding, but some of those other bigger guys like Neighbors and some of those guys, you got to get a little lucky with the rookies too, especially the running back position. a guy like Jonathan Brooks probably going to be a big get. You know, I mean, I just read that article about how they want to be a rushing team and do all this stuff with Canales out there. But him later, if you're waiting on running back, that could be a good get as you plug and play guys. You might not be able to start him right away because he might not play right away. But in the middle of the year in Scott Fishbowl, that's a guy that you can rely on down the stretch. So those are the other things that kind of keep, you know, notice of this as I've drafted these things for the last 4 years. Like, you really got to hit on some of those rookies later.
Dustin, I kind of left you a favor here with Easter egg with Dalton Kincaid still on the board, but I wanted to go that stack with Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram here. So you made a guy. I think Kincaid might be the leading receiver in Buffalo this year, to be honest with you. But Ingram, as much as I don't think Ingram's going to have as much production as he had last year, just that stack with Trevor Lawrence, I think is pretty important on my team. So.
Yeah, stacking is an interesting concept because it's been proven that if you take the guys ahead of ADP, you kind of lose the value in stacking. But if you can get a stack, especially in a tournament like this, it could really pay off for you.
Look at that, right in your lap. You can
Right
take whatever you want to, but
I'm going to have to take him here.
I don't see how you can't.
Stack. Now I'm looking at what do I want to do at 104. I have 2 tight ends, 1 quarterback. I have no running backs, wide receivers. Do I want to take when it's a long wait for me? I think I'm going to pull the trigger on. You can figure out how to draft here. Travis Etienne.
Jeez, that's a good pick, man.
Pittman, yeah, I like the upside.
JT, what do you do? Pittman's off the board. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. He's who I was looking at here. I was trying to decide, do I go QB here in the 4th? I've done a bunch of Scott Fishbowl drafts so far, and I've done a bunch of different builds. I've done this Raven stack with Lamar and Andrews. I've done some stuff where I've thrown Kittle in here. I've done a few of them where actually team picking 102, where I've actually gone that way, where I've actually picked McCaffrey 1. I've got Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd and kind of waited on QB and try to load up on all running backs early because I figured a lot of people are going to skip when you only got to start one of them. So that's kind of, you know, where I'm looking at that there. I'm probably going Dak here on the way back just in case. I know a bunch of people don't have quarterbacks yet. I'll probably go Dak to make sure I get my second one. Just in with Lamar. He was healthy last year, but you never know. So grabbed him. I don't mind the 2 QB, 2 tight ends to start.
That's not bad at all, JT. To get Dak back there is you did a hell of a job there. But the points for the rushing and the carries and the first downs, I'm going to have to go Derrick Henry here because I think I took Derrick Henry in round 2 my last mock last week, or I think it was a couple days ago. But I just feel like those elite running backs are so hard to pass on.
Yeah, John, I would have considered Henry there, but then I was putting all my eggs in the Ravens basket. So I was like, if I would have went somewhere other than Lamar and Andrews, I probably would have taken Henry in the 4th.
All right. So this is where it kind of gets interesting because we're on this flip end. I know Colin's going to steal someone from me here. I'm not going to give Colin who I want on my second pick, but I do think the one strategy I've used, so I've made the semis 2 years in a row. I made the playoffs all 4 years. The one strategy that I kind of have used and utilized in this is having an anchor running back, like a guy, you know, and I wait on my second running back later. And I've hit on that guy each time. And so that really is luck too with the running back position. So just based on who's on the board of that running back spot with the highest upside, I'm going to take a Chain, and just kind of grab him because he could be that anchor guy. Now, he might get injured. He might not have that, but you still have that upside week in, week out with him. And then later you grab some veteran guys that you can plug and play. And if he's healthy, though, he gives you the highest upside for a top 5 back.
Yeah, I was hoping to draft him. So
good.
thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's all about upside here and you know, explosive plays. And I think that is just Devon Achane in general. This is tough because, I think a lot of these auto draft teams are ignoring the quarterbacks, with maybe some settings, but that actually puts us in tougher positions. We all have our quarterbacks, so we need to dive deeper for these positional guys. I'm going to emphasize tight end again here, and I want to believe X-Files, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I still think there is a chance that Kyle Pitts can have a great year with Kirk Cousins there. I think an improved offense, the best quarterback he's ever played with, the 1.5 points per reception, plus the first down bonuses, tight end. I'm stacking up there, Kelsey and Pitts. I was hoping to get Achane on the way back, though. So this is tough. Man.
I mean, you're in a tough spot because you have quarterback, tight end. So you have no running backs, wide receivers. So the board is open, but also almost too open for you at this point.
And a lot of positional players have been taken. Like, I would obviously love if maybe a Nico Collins or Jalen Waddle were there.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take Deebo Samuel for the yak ability, the big plays, because I think there are bonuses, if I'm not mistaken, checking the rules. Maybe not. I could be completely wrong. But
no,
yeah, I
he's
thought
going
there
to
were
get carries. He's going to get carries and first downs and all the stuff you need for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was points for 50-yard plays and such. That's actually just for the quarterbacks. 1 point per 50 yards. I read that wrong. I thought it was big plays. You got bonuses. Man, I'm also thinking of the FC eliminators. There's a lot of different scoring there, and that's still on the mind. But Deebo Samuel, I don't think it's a bad pick here. Huge target there in San Francisco. If Brandon Ayuk's not there, if Brandon Ayuk holds out, could be a huge pick for me.
Yeah, I had Deebo as the top guy on my list in terms of positional players. I think you're right. What he does in that offense, what he can do in terms of getting some carries every now and then, getting first downs on those plays, I think that's huge.
Jake Ferguson, nice pick there by Kevin. We got some comments here. Hey, all, Team 7 here by Chicago Spartan. New mailman Chris. I wonder if the winner last year did a slow draft or an early live draft. Not sure. Chuck Bass.
Live.
We did live. Chuck Bass, that handsome one, drafted a great team, and the rest are deeply unserious.
Thank you, Chuck.
Chuck's got some great comments, as usual. Winner last year's Philly draft, and we'll be there again. Jed Barson. Wendy Early, friend of the show. Thank you very much for joining us again, Wendy and McGlynn. Yes, I'm kind of imperative to be here. It's my show.
You're also on the clock there, McGlynn.
I am. I can let me do this.
He's living in the comment section. He's not taking this very seriously.
No.
I'm going to take DK just because I need a wide receiver. I think he's the best one available still right now.
There goes most of my queue.
I was looking at Cup or DK there, so threw me off, and I decided to go running back instead because those are the two guys I wanted.
Commissioner Breeze, thanks for jumping in. My guys, LFG. Thanks for joining us. Commissioner Breeze, now a new writer for the Fantrax site. Also, Dustin, also a new writer for the Fantrax site. We got some great articles coming in. Hopefully, you guys will be regulars on some of the other shows. Also, great content creators across the board on Fantrax now. Colin, everybody here has something to do with Fantrax a little bit. Thanks for joining in today, guys.
Back on the clock.
So this is tough. I got the Zay Flowers triple stack staring me in the face. And it's like, do I want to do it or do I not? I love stack. Love to stack, but I'm like, do I want to put that much on the Ravens?
What's the Ravens bye week?
They're late.
If it's in the playoffs, you are SOL.
It's not a great one.
It is week 12.
Oh, it's playoff, dude.
Yeah, it's Scott Fishbowl round 1.
Yeah.
That is a huge thing that I don't pay attention to enough.
I need to think about that a little bit more on this strategy now that you said that. I got to think about whether I want to go Ravens early now.
So why he's thinking Josh Allen, McCaffrey, Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes, Hurts, Chase, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, C.J. Stroud, and Richard Moore, number 1. Brock Bowers just went off the board. Big score right there.
Bowers, I think he could have a big year with the – I just think he's going to end up being the guy they dump the ball off to a ton. So I'm taking Bowers.
I don't hate your build, JT, especially that you're basically pushing wide receivers down because with the kick return and punt return yards, those are probably going to be wide receivers for the most part. So you'll see average guys get a huge bump. So we'll see a lot more serviceable wide receivers in Scott Fishbowl with those return yardage numbers.
Round 2 is McBride, Jonathan Taylor, Gibbs, Garrett Wilson, Andrews, T-Law, Sunshine, Laporta, AJ Brown, Bijan, Breece Hall, Burrow, and Kyler Murray. I am going to take Aaron Jones here because I like the receiving ability. And then we are back in the clock at number 7. Round 3 was Etienne, Pittman, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Dak Prescott, Derrick Henry, Jaden Daniels, Nico Collins, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Waddle, Devin Achane, and Pitts. And then we had Jordan Love, Joe Mixon, James Cook, Pacheco, Ken Walker, Metcalf, Kupp, Devonta Smith, Diggs, Rashad White, Ferguson, and Samuel. Now we are in round 6 with Kevin on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear for everybody out there that are watching, these quarterbacks aren't going to be here. So you see like Tua and these guys here, they will not be here in the 6th round. Like that is just not going to happen. But, when you're looking at, if you have those two guys, there's going to be a weight here in terms of like where you're going at. So I would draft those quarterbacks if they're there, but they're not going to be there. So I'm going to kind of play it like it should be. Oh, this guy's a tough one for me. I think he has upside, but he makes me really nervous. But I'm going to take George Pickens as just a guy. He's the wide receiver 1 for I don't know who's playing quarterback, but I'll take George there just based on target share. I mean, what he's going to be there. I mean, upside plays there. And I took Ferguson last round because I think he's the wide receiver 2 on Dallas. And I think that he could have a very big year this year as a Dallas fan as well.
Yeah, I like that Pickens pick. That's kind of where I've been looking at him, is about this 6th round in a lot of my SFB drafts so far.
I'm going to break the rules a little bit, opposite of what Kevin said. These quarterbacks shouldn't be here, but a strategy that I like to implement is to get a 3rd quarterback. I do not want to flounder when it is, unfortunate that maybe a Kyler Murray or even Anthony Richardson, the 2 guys that I went early on, go down with an injury. I do not want to be taking their backups. Although Joe Flacco is Anthony Richardson's backup.
Joe Flacco knocked me out about 30 playoffs last year. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So Caleb Williams should be off the board anyway. So I'm just going to take him to emphasize how much I expect him to have a great rookie season. And I don't mind drafting a 3rd quarterback in Scott Fishbowl earlier than usual because I'd rather get some security early on and still try to hit on running backs and wide receivers later on. Luckily for me, there's still some very talented players on the board. This guy, I don't understand why people are disrespecting him. T. Higgins on my team now. I do wish I had Joe Burrow, so maybe even though there's no trading, we can break the rules again, Kev, and make a trade here.
Round 6, Mark. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Colin's point about taking a 3rd quarterback is important. I've played Russian roulette a long time with this in these areas where I take 2 QBs and I just kind of roll with it, and it bites you sometimes because someone gets hurt. And like
last year,
so that 3rd quarterback does matter. And really, what it comes down to is I think the best value with the 3rd quarterback is the rookies. So when you're thinking of like Drake May, Jaden Daniels, maybe Caleb, but like he said, Caleb's probably going to go a little higher. But really, I think it really comes down to, hey, how much you trust Drake May or possibly Jaden Daniels? And I would lean Daniels just because of the rushing upside, but so will everybody else. So May might be that value later where he's sitting there. Like Stroud and Bryce had ADPs of like 15 rounds, 16th round last year, depending. I think in the Vegas live draft, they went a little higher, but that's because everybody was drinking and it was a little crazy out there. So like that was probably a little bit different. So like the ADP definitely fluctuates, but definitely going after that 3rd quarterback is important.
Yeah, I think this year especially, Bo Nix and even JJ McCarthy are good guys to target late. They're going to get under center at some point. Bo Nix maybe sooner than later, but we won't have that information when we're drafting these Scott Fishbowl teams. So you can get in early on a guy like him, but you could draft him late in this draft.
Yeah, a lot of redraft guys will be at the Scott Fishbowl too, and they're not looking at the who's going to be starting at Sam Darnold or guys like that who might start the year off as starting quarterbacks. So it might be a situation where you can get a quarterback late also if people are taking McCarthy instead of.
Yeah, and with that, like you can also throw in guys like a Will Levis in that conversation of we just don't have 100% know what he's going to be on that team, and they've loaded up with weapons. Obviously, getting Calvin Ridley. So I took Njoku at the 7-12. I already have 2 tight ends, but with the bonuses, I can theoretically start all 3 of these guys. And then DeAndre Hopkins, who went after Calvin Ridley for Tennessee. So they went close. Ridley went at the 7-4. Hopkins went at 8-1. I think he's still good enough that he can be an every week player for me in Scott Fishbowl and has a ton of upside if him and Will Levis connect. And if Ridley gets hurt or Tyler Boyd doesn't really show up, he could still dominate that team in targets.
Round 6 was Mari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Alvin Kamara, Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Zay Flowers, Christian Kirk, Tank Dell, George Pickens, and Caleb Williams. And then T. Higgins. In 7th round was T. Higgins, McLaurin, Rashee Rice, Ridley, James Conner, Brock Purdy, Chris Godwin, Tua, Tagovailoa, DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson, Jaden Reed, and David Njoku. We are in round 8 right now. I am going to take another receiver here. Maybe I won't. Let's see what we got for.
Well, John, I was going to say I took Tua here in the 7th. If I've been waiting on a second QB, I've been getting him, but a lot of times I've been having to wait to get him late in the 3rd or on the 4th turn. So he's more going in that range than he would be here. Now I have seen leagues where quarterback drops really far. They've never been in any of the live drafts I've been in. Quarterbacks go early and often, typically in the live drafts, but sometimes you get some of these other drafts, people really play the ADP and they try to see who's going to drop and go where. So it really does depend on your draft.
In this league this year, in a redraft, you guys taking like Will Levis, or you taking Bryce Young?
Oh, Will Levis.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of on the same page. I didn't expect to be that big of a
way better weapons.
I mean, Carolina did improve a lot this year, so I just wanted to, I didn't know they both made a lot of big improvements actually, but I just feel like
I like their coach too. I mean, Dave Canales will have a chance to revive Bryce's career, but we've seen a little bit more from Will Levis up to this point. He has D-Hop, he has Calvin Ridley, even Pollard out there. So
Pollard. I mean, Chigakonko, Boyd. I mean, Spears. He's got some better weapons than what Carolina has.
Speaking of Tennessee, I was hoping to get Pollard here because I don't have a running back yet. He's one of 6 players last year to touch the ball over 300 times. And I think he would have been a nice sneaky grab late here. But alas, he's off the board. So I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert, making over 30-year-olds proud everywhere that you still have an opportunity to shine. I don't think he's just going to fade into oblivion. So I'm glad I got a piece of this Miami backfield. And then I'm going to take for the big play upside, Christian Watson. I still think he is confidently the top receiver you want in Green Bay if he is healthy. Huge asterisk there.
Great pick.
Watson
could be the number one. There's a lot of guys on that Green Bay team, but there needs to be one leader, and I think Watson has that ability to be the main guy. So.
Yeah, so when you're looking at this, I struggle because I really want to take Rome Odunze, and I struggle though sometimes with where he's at his situation in terms of what he's going to do this year. I mean, him and JSN just sitting there like calling my name because I love JSN as well, but they're kind of in similar situations there. I'm going to probably just take JSN and hope that this new offense does him favors in terms of being in the slot, grabs his offense out there. But Rome is an interesting piece because the Bears coaching staff talked about him maybe being the punt returner. And so when you think of return yards and all of that, like they could want to get him on the field. And it sounds like the coaching staff wants him to touch the football as much as possible, which is positive. But so, Rome's not a terrible pick in this area too with the return yards. It's just tough. I'll take the shot on JSN, but I do know that that's a risky pick.
Yeah, I read that report on Rome doing punt returns, and we'll see. I mean, we have historical evidence of, top receivers doing, punt returns in the first couple of years. I don't know if he'll have the job full time. I mean, he also is probably going to be needed because Keenan Allen can't stay healthy. So it's tough to put your number 1 or number 2 wide receiver out on a punt return on a regular basis. So but it's not a bad pick. I think JSN I like a little better, but I think Rome is a good pick. You're just banking on the opportunities and Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I've been on Twitter the last couple of days having conversations about Nick Chubb and when he's coming back, and I don't believe that this year will be any bit of a quality year for him. So I'm going to go with Jerome Ford here because I think he's going to have the best start of his season. And Scott Fishbowl's not as long as the rest of the other fantasy seasons are. So if he gets a chance, the opportunity to play as the main primary back for the first 8 or 9 games, that puts you in a situation to make the playoffs. Pat Freiermuth is a really good pick there, JT.
Yeah, I'm looking at look at the wide receivers that are left at this point, and I'd rather take a tight end that has a shot to be the number 2 wide receiver on his whole team. So I like Muth there, and he's one of those guys I feel like every time I've really waited on him, I miss out on him. So I usually would have tried to get him in maybe another round or 2 later, but at this point, I'm looking at who was left at tight end and figured I should jump in now and get him.
Hawkinson's a great late pick for this year because I think people think, he's probably going to be not playing until halfway through the season, but he's a great late pick as far as someone who will come on towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and so then I took Cortland Sutton at the 9-12 to be my wide receiver 3. I like that pick. I think he's the number 1 receiver for Denver. It's just a matter of what that room looks like with Bo Nix or whoever might be starting. And then I'm going to take Brian Robinson as my second running back. I think he beats out Eckler for the job in Washington. I think he's a good enough player to be a rotational guy for me on my team, especially in the 10th round. So interesting, Team 11 just took their first quarterback in Will Levis at 10-2.
Championship.
I mean, if Will Levis is what we saw that first game of Will Levis, yeah, that's a great pick. If he's what we saw the rest of the season with Will Levis, maybe not so much.
And here I'm going my first wide receiver. I'm going Rashid Shaheed. If he does kick and punt return as the number 2 wideout for them, if they let him play a lot of offensive snaps plus continue to do the special teams, he's going to be a steal in this draft. So he's a guy I'm looking at to be a guy that would be probably my 1 starting wide receiver every week.
He's the big name when we talk about the kick return and punt return duties that people are talking about. He's the highest profile name out there of who did it last year. It just matter if he has that role this year. I don't think he will. I think he's too valuable in the offense to do it this year, but it doesn't mean he won't do it some. I just don't think he'll do it full time.
Just lost my guy here. I'm going to go. We don't have punt returns. I'm going to go Lad McConkey here because I think he has an opportunity to get a lot of targets this year. So not punt and kick returning out of the equation. Where is? I couldn't find
we got a kicker. Our first kicker was taken.
Oh.
So when I'm sitting here at the 10th, the one thing I would say, like, just for strategy base, I know the mocks aren't perfect and this one isn't, but like the way I look at it is if I go anchor running back or I take that guy, that hero running back kind of mold with a Chan, it's like, all right, who's my running back 2? And I would really look between the 10th and the 12th rounds for that running back 2 and what you're looking for. I like taking a shot on a rookie in this range, either Benson or Jonathan Brooks, depending on who you think is going to have the better outcome. And I would really look at it as like, all right, which guy can get me through to the playoffs? Which guy in the middle of the season can I kind of plug in there and go based on their offense and where they're at? I'm going to lean Benson. It could be easy for Brooks, and maybe if he came back around to me, he could. But I do think I know James Conner's still there, but James Conner hasn't finished a season healthy in the last, really his entire career. And I don't bank on him getting unhealthy. I just think that they're going to run more than people think. Last year, I mean, they were the top 5 rushing offense in the league. Like, people forget that. And I know it had to do it because of Murray. They didn't have the weapons on the outside. But I do think Benson is a fun get late, and especially as you're running back to a guy that you could plug in later.
Yeah, and you're banking on you going to chain every week until week 9-10, right, of the season, when you're hoping Benson takes over, gets a bigger share of that workload, and then he can be your anchor in the running back. So you're kind of almost like first half of the season, second half of the season drafting for that now, which is a smart strategy. I mean, I did the same thing. I took ETN at 4-1, and then I took Brian Robinson at 10-1. I wanted a little more consistency for me over a Benson or a Brook, but I think Benson is a great play there.
Turpin, love that pick.
Yeah, so my last pick, I want to emphasize the rules here with the kick return, punt return. The rule change was really made for a guy like Kevontae Turpin. Yeah. He is lightning fast. He is going to really be a huge part of the Dallas Cowboys just team goals, is to just get as far down the field as possible, because I don't really know who the wide receivers are beyond CeeDee Lamb and kind of Brandon Cooks in the late stage of his career. Kevontae Turpin could be the wide receiver 3. But, if these kick return rules play in their favor, they could be halfway down the field by the time they take their first snap of the game. I think this guy's going to rack up a ton of points in Scott Fishbowl. Would I draft him in the 10th round? Probably not, but because we're only a 10-round mock draft here, I wanted to emphasize that. And Kev, you just released an article on your Twitter at DuBois_22 emphasizing guys that play into that rule. And you had him at the number 2 player that you would recommend. I knew him for his speed. It was nice to see him up there for you. So that's why I took him here, because I just think he's a huge advantageous play for Scott Fishbowl. I want people that are watching right now to know that before they draft their real teams.
Shad Parsons says expensive injury away option in Trey Benson. I doubt Benson takes the job from James Conner. Well, I mean, like we talked about earlier before, this is a situation where you're going for upside, you're going for chances here. This is a tournament where you just can't go by the ADP. You're gonna. This is a situation where that move right there of taking Benson could win you a championship just by thinking outside the box. What happens if Connor does go down? Benson's a league winner, especially in a league like this. Why wouldn't you?
Again, yeah, Chad didn't listen to me like usual. So like I said, Chad, when I drafted him, what I was looking for was, a guy, especially in this format, when you're looking at this as someone who's made the semis the last 2 years, is I always look for guys that could possibly give you that workload later. And especially there, I'm still filling out my roster. I'm still looking for those veteran running backs that are definitely running back ones. There's plenty of guys on the board at the running back position. I never said he was going to overtly take over for James Conner. That never came out of my mouth. I said possibly if he gets injured, but they could still share usage and they still be there. I think that's a big part of the game. And again, remember, this is an SFB draft. I mean, you really kind of have to pivot when you need to. But I always love you, Chad. I love when you pop in and I can see you again.
Yeah, I mean, we could see an easy transition to a Ken Walker, Zach Charbonnet role in Arizona for Connor and Trey Benson.
All right, Colin, real fast. Your team is Richardson, Murray, Kelsey, Pitts, Samuel, Caleb, T. Higgins, Mostert, Christian Watson, and Kyle Turpin. How do you feel about your team?
Oh my God, my only running back is 31 or 32. Oh my God. Yeah, you know what? I don't. Here's the thing with Scott Fishbowl, it's a lot of flex positions. You don't need 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. You can just load up on tight end and wide receiver, which I kind of plan to do. I think I'm going to be loading up on a lot of tight ends early and often. And then the quarterbacks are just such a safe pick to ground your team. You need them early on because you don't want to be riding into your season with Gardner Minshew and Bo Nix as your top guys. So I feel good about the top 2 guys I took. I don't expect both, maybe not even either of them to be there, but you got to play the board as it lies. And I'm happy to have 2 rushing guys there. So
Chicago Spartan going to need to pay attention to which teams kick for touchbacks and bench those return guys those weeks. Yes, that is true. Kevin, how do you feel about your team?
Yeah, I know. Generally speaking, I think if I can get Jared Goff as my QB3, I'd be pretty happy with that. I think from the wide receiver position, a little bit risk there involved. But if Ferguson has a big year, then I'm covered because I think he's my wide receiver too. And then with the scoring, you'd be happy with that. I think he is touchdown dependent a little bit, but I do think Dallas is going to probably be the most pass happy team in the NFL. I think they could lead the league in passes and attempts. So I think that's the big thing where you lean on like a Dallas tight end there. But overall, yeah, I think it's fine. I think that, again, just I cannot stress enough, people are going to have tons of strategies going into this. And then after the first round, it's going to be blown up because it's, everybody else had the same strategy or however it goes. So just ebb and flow, definitely just ebb and flow and just take guys and have fun with it too. Like the whole part of this is to have fun with SFB, but also like, the weird builds do win sometimes. And that's just the reality of it. And you got to get lucky. So just have fun. Ebb and flow. Don't stick to a strategy if it's get blown up already. If you miss your guy, don't panic either. Take your time, see the board, understand kind of where the value lies there. But from my experience, the way I've built teams, anchor running back, I've had success with it. But again, that's one of those things that people aren't, necessarily going after running backs early. And there's some guys still there. If Brees is still there, you might want to take him, right? Because he could be running back 1. And it just really comes with the strategy and just having fun with it.
Kevin went Stroud, Burrow, Puka, Devin A-Chain, Ferguson, Pickens, Terry McLaurin, Jared Goff, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Trey Benson. That was a nice team right there. I went Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, Derrick Henry, Metcalf, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield, Jerome Ford. And like we said before, Mayfield won't be here in the 8th round. It's kind of, it's a luxury pick at that point in time. He probably won't beat her. I'll be taking a lot less valuable kickers or wide quarterbacks in the 8th round than Baker Mayfield. Jerome Ford and Ladd McConkey. I feel like it's a lot of upside guys kind of deal, but that's team build is important, but it's a lot of this is luck, man. It's going to go down to luck this year. What injuries, what's going to happen to guys and their projections. But JT, you got Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Dak Prescott, Ken Walker, Brock Bowers, Tua, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, and Rashid Shaheed as your number 10 pick. How do you feel about your team?
Yeah, like I think like what everybody else has said, you gotta kind of be ready to ebb and flow with what happens. I'm gonna be looking for tight ends a little more this year, not 100% because of scoring, but I waited way too long last year, and that position murdered me. And I missed the playoffs because of it, because I just kept missing a guy. And then I'm like, okay, I'll wait till the next round. And the guy was going to take the next round. He went right before me. And then it was like I felt like I was jumping way too far ahead to take a guy. And I just waited. And I ended up with like Jawan Johnson and Hunter Henry as my 2 tight ends last year. So it was terrible. So I'm probably going to be a little bit more cognizant of that. But the fact that you only got to start one running back, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are going to bail on running back because of that, and it might be the right strategy. I'm going to keep an eye on that because I've had some pretty good builds where I went through and took running back where everybody was kind of avoiding them. So it just kind of depend on where guys fell for me on that. But I'm at 1-4. And I'm really debating hard. Is that Hurts? Is that Lamar? Is that AR?
Yeah.
I've even taken AR at 1-4. So that's going to be my biggest decision, who I'm going with there. And then I'll kind of adjust from there. I think the biggest thing we're going to see this year is that first waiver wire run. Because we're going to get a week to see kind of like, okay, are teams really returning? Are they still kicking the ball in the end zone? Okay, are these returns like 10 yards? Are they like consistently 35, 40-yard returns? And then we're going to see actually who's actually kicking punt returning for everybody. Because when we're drafting in July, a lot of that's not going to be figured out until the depth chart kind of makes its way. So a lot of teams end up having their 3rd or 4th wide receiver or running back ends up being their kick punt returner. So it's going to be interesting to see who ends up on those spots. Like I see like Josh Downs. If you look right now, if Josh Downs kicks and punt returns as their slot receiver, like he flies up my board. I don't think he ends up kicking punt returner. I think it ends up being Gould, the rookie out of Oregon State. So I think he ends up being a great late round flyer that I'm looking at because with a couple injuries, he does see offensive snaps, but I think he will consistently be the kick and punt returner. So I think those are the things people are going to look out for. And if we really are seeing that the special teams, the way the scoring set up, that these guys are scoring an absolute load of points, that's where we're going to see people jumping in on the waiver wire and grabbing those guys off of there.
Yeah, guys like Khalil Shakir and things like that, that may be, one of the top receivers in Buffalo and also has a kick and punt return duties also. Those guys are invaluable in this format. So let's go to Dustin. You got Josh Allen, my new Dan Marino. This is my favorite player in the NFL right now. Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, that awesome stack. Travis Etienne, Jordan Love, Amari Cooper, David Njoku, DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton, and Brian Robinson, which I think Brian Robinson is underrated right now because people are a little bit afraid of the addition of his kind of new competition. But tell me about your team, Dustin.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I know I'm taking Josh Allen 101 on Sunday at the Madison Live Draft. Kincaid is always going to probably be an option for most people. If you take Allen at 1, he's going to be an option at 212. I didn't think he'd be there at 312. Like I said, I'm not a huge Kincaid believer. I like getting a stack. I've traditionally been going Keon Coleman later in my drafts, stacked with Josh Allen. Jordan Love was an interesting pick. Again, quarterbacks fell in this draft. I don't expect them to, but there are still some good quarterbacks on the board. Deshaun Watson's still there. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, guys who are Geno Smith, who are serviceable as a second quarterback. Kind of went tight end heavy with my team with McBride, Kincaid, and Njoku. Don't love having Njoku and Amari Cooper, my team, having that Cleveland stack. If this draft would have continued, I probably would have taken Deshaun Watson just to have that stack as my third quarterback. I agree with JT. I think what we're looking at is who's going to be the punt and kick returners. We don't know. I know Kevin put out a piece. I put out a piece, like my possibles. I know Andrew Cooper put out a possibles of who we project to be kick return, punt returns. That the first 2 rounds of waivers are going to be huge, but I also think later in the season, we're going to see a shift because what I think is going to happen is teams are going to kick off the first couple weeks. We're going to see these big returns, and then they're just going to realize, man, they're getting too many yards. It just makes more sense just to kick a touchback. So we could see guys have a ton of points. Let's say Shaheed is the punt returner. He might get an extra 10 points a week for the first 8 weeks, and all of a sudden the teams are like, screw it, we're just going to kick a touchback against Shaheed, and he's going to lose those points. So we could see guys' production dip if kickoffs go back to touchbacks. But I think you're right, JT. First round of waivers, second round of waivers, picking up the guys that are doing the punt and kick returns are going to be huge. I know, Kevin, me and you had a couple similar guys on our list. We're both big on Louis Reese-Zemet from Kansas City, who's the rugby player coming in. I think he could be a special player late round. So that's where I'm looking at. After I get my starters and a couple flex guys, I'm just loading up on hopefully some lottery tickets on kick returners and hopefully get some guys that can hit and give me some extra points later on.
Outstanding, fellas. Some people were not here for the introductions. I just want to say thank you, all you smart, handsome gentlemen, for jumping on the show today. So, Dustin, you picked first. Why don't you tell us everybody where they can find you, all the good stuff you do, and where everybody can find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the DUnit13. That's the best place to find me. I just signed on to be a writer at Fantrax. I'm still the director of content at Dynasty Pros, so you can find me there. I'll be on the Trade Addicts pod tonight. I'll be on Sports Affiliation with Greg and Tip tomorrow night, doing some stuff there. And then I have an announcement coming out on Friday, so follow me on Twitter so you can catch that announcement of something big coming. But happy to be part of Fantrax now. I'll be working on an article later today, so I'll get some new stuff coming out on Fantrax.
If you're watching this stuff on the Fantrax YouTube channel, there's a reason for that, because you're probably into college fantasy football, and there's not a guy. There's a handful of people in this Twitter space or in the world that are as good as Kevin Coleman is as far as college football. Kevin, where can everybody find you at with your awesome work in the Devy Royale, the Devy League, the Devy College world?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely smarter people than me, but I'll take the compliment. I think the biggest thing, you can find us over at the Devy Royale YouTube and our Substack that we just started last month that we've been seeing a lot of people go to. We appreciate that. And our Patreon. So we have a bunch of different stuff if you're into college football. It's only $5, and you get a ton of content. You know, we have the Devy Guide, over 150 players in that. We have all of our rankings, and we actually just came out with Jay's gonna be mad at me because he's not ready to release it yet. But Jay Stein, if you don't follow him, I would. He's the smartest dude I've ever met in my life. He actually built a Devy trade calculator. So it's one of the first ever Devy trade calculators where you can value Devy assets compared to Dynasty assets within it. And it's on our Patreon. It's pretty cool because it's always a question if you play Devy, like, you know, how the hell do I value Luther Burden compared to Tyreek Hill? And so we've done that. It's in the prototype phase. We got it rolled out, and our patrons are using it right now. But that's a big thing that we put together this last month, basically. And we're excited to kind of roll it out to people.
That is absolutely amazing. It's to have these trade calculators that show like the value of college players. I turn to JT for college stuff sometimes, man. There's not a guy named Justin Taylor, J. Brew on the Twitter machine here. I can ask him who's the backup linebacker for the Mizzou, at Tigers, and he could tell you right now. Oh, he played 32 snaps. He plays sometimes he plays fullback too. Talk about a smart guy, JT. You're the co-host of the Mo-host for the reason. Tell everybody where they can find you, the stuff you do, and all that. What you do in this fantasy football world that makes you so special.
Thanks, John. You're all too kind to me as usual. I am always on here with you on Fantrax and on Fantasy and Frames, where we do the Commissioner Evaluation show. I'm on Shoot the Gap on Wednesday nights, where we talk IDP there. I jump on all the other shows over there on Fantasy and Frames whenever they need me. I also host the Stew with JT Brew, my own podcast, do a lot of gambling talk and things like that on there. You can find written content from me kind of all over the place, but DLF is where they got most of my stuff. So I'm usually doing IDP rankings. I'm doing preseason stuff, a bunch of prep work and things for the draft. So that's where a lot of my writing typically off season is. But yeah, IDP, I'm getting into more CFF. I joined a bunch more C2Cs this year. It's kind of my new addiction is the C2Cs and the CFFs. So I've been on there. And so, yeah, definitely go to the Devy Royale. I watch Kevin and those guys over there all the time. Great info with them for sure.
Kevin and Christian are just, man, the content they put out is just outstanding. But we have one handsome man to introduce, to see his way out here also. Colin McTammany. I see you all over Fantrax writing on shows with Nick, all this stuff. Tell everybody where they can find you at, because you are an underrated asset in this fantasy community.
I appreciate you calling me handsome, because I'm the only one here without a beard. Again, I got to stop coming on these live streams without a beard, but I struggle to grow one. But yeah, I am all over Fantrax. Myself and Nick Script over there. He's really assembled a great team. Dustin, obviously, joining us recently. Obviously you guys are there as well. But we've have a really good team over there, a lot of good stuff, getting more into the live stream space. So I appreciate you having us on here today to do a Scott Fish draft on Fantrax. The app has been updated, time and time again. It's really getting there, but college fantasy football is a great place, is the only place to play is Fantrax. So definitely play your college fantasy football on Fantrax. As for myself, I'm much more of a redraft guy. This is my time, this time of year right now, heading into training camp, the 2024 fantasy football season. I'm all over it. releasing articles on the daily basis. But for right now, a lot of my efforts have been putting together the Scott Fishbowl Philly live draft, which is July 14th. If you're in the Philadelphia area and you're trying to check it out, have no idea what it is, watch this today. Or you didn't get in and want a chance to win your way into Scott Fishbowl 15, we will have an opportunity to do that at the live draft. So come check us out.
Fantastic. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on John McGlynn 70. I say Nick Script would have been here with us today, but today is his son Cyrus's birthday. Tomorrow is his daughter Mila's birthday. He's got a busy day with his kids. Nick, happy birthday to your wonderful kids. Just you can find me. I'll be on UTH tonight with Chad Parsons. Tomorrow I have 3 shows going with Fantasy and Frames. A couple other places I'll be at for other Scott Fishbowl mock drafts. But thanks for joining in the Dynasty Evaluation Show. You can find me on Fantasy and Frames and right here on Fantrax. And thanks everybody for spending your time with us today. 370 some viewers, live viewers on the show. Thank you very much for making the Dynasty Evaluation what it is, and thank you very much everyone for joining us today. Have a good one.